Tampa native. Tampa native, can't you see? I will share my story with you to preserve its history. I'm a Tampa native. Tampa native through and through. Seen a lot of things go down here. Some things I never knew. Oh, hey, Mario. What's happening, bro? We gonna have a good season this year? Yeah, you bet we are. You and Tampa Steve, 15-minute girl. We're gonna party, bro. Talk about the past, present, maybe even the future of this great city of ours called Tampa. Oh, yeah. Otra vez. Come here. Let me say something. I remember Tampa, the way she used to be, the places we would run to, the faces we would see. Yes, I remember Tampa, those precious memories, a city rising on the move, a simple yet progressive groove. I remember Tampa, and she remembers me. Yeah. She remembers me.
Welcome to the Tampa Native Show. Stay tuned now for the fastest 60 minutes in cable broadcast history. Live from the studios at TBCN, the home of the Tampa Native Show. Join your hosts, Mario Nunez, the 15-minute girl, and Steve Canella, as they celebrate growing up in Tampa. From Shock Armstrong to Shakey's Pizza, from Braddock Street to Buffalo Avenue. Get ready to call in and tell us your stories, because sharing your memories has never been this much fun. And now, Mario Nunez, the 15-minute girl, and Steve Canella.
She remembers me.
Hi everybody, welcome back to the Tampa Native Show, the only show of its kind in the universe, or at least the known universe. My name is Mario Nunez, and I'm seated alongside my broadcast partner,
Steve Canella,
a.k.a.
Tampa Steve.
And alongside Steve is
Sally Nunez,
a.k.a.
the 15-minute girl.
And we're so happy to be back with you for another edition of the Tampa Native Show. I can tell you that those of you that are out there watching are in store for a very special Tampa Native Show edition. We've got Rudy Fernandez, who's going to be joining us here in just a little bit to tell us about a very compelling story, one that's evolving, if you will, that he has told us and shared with us, and tonight we're going to share with you. It's all about a recent trip he had to Cuba. And if you can see in the backdrop there, tonight's show will be, let's say, Cuba-centric, if you want to call it.
Good way to put it.
All about Cuba and Rudy's recent trip to Cuba. You know, I would be remiss if I didn't mention our very loyal fans. We have some of the most incredible loyal fans just about anywhere.
We have the most incredible loyal fans, and we actually had our first watch party winner party at Castillo's Cafe on Tuesday night. We had a delicious dinner. We had fun with our friends that came along to hang with us. They made a great paella for some guests that were going to be there later in the night. We got to see that. I took pictures of it. It was a lot of fun, and we watched the show, the replay of the show on Tuesday night.
You know, guys, our fans are loyal, and in fact, if this were a poker game, I'll meet your Castillo's Cafe, and I'll raise you one Philip Cacciatore.
How so, Steve?
All right.
Well,
How so?
You know why? Because last week, 10 minutes before the show ended, Philip called in, but we couldn't take the call because we were, doing our Bolito drawing, as you may remember. Not Bolita. But anyway, 5 minutes after the show ended, he was still on. We picked up the phone, and it was Philip Cacciatore. He just wanted to say hello.
That was
Now,
so cute.
Talk about loyalty. How about that?
Yeah.
And if it didn't get any better than that, and you know it did, I'll see your Philip Cacciatore and raise you one Tom from New York.
Go for it.
That's our NEC, which is our Northeast correspondent. Now, let me tell you a little bit about what happened to Tom. You see, Tom was at home in New York watching our show. He's quickly becoming one of our best fans. But there was a problem. There was a problem last week with our feed. And all Tom got in New York was color bars, unfortunately. Such a tried true fan that he watched the entire hour in hopes that the color bars would go away. And believe me when I tell you, he spoke to Steve the next morning and he could recite the color bars from the color prism from left
green,
to right. He knew
yellow,
the colors.
blue, red.
And I tell you what, I think that even trumps Philip Cacciatore, who stood on the phone for 10 minutes. After the show was over, we punched the number and we said, caller, you're on the air, tell us your name and where you're calling from. And you know, it was Mr. Cacciatore. He just wanted to say hello.
How sweet.
Hats off to all of our fans. We love you. You guys make it worthwhile for us to come in here each and every week and do what it is that we do. And we hope that you're having as much fun watching us as we are being in studio with you. Steve, let's do what we do each week and let's pay homage and credit to our sponsors. We need to do that right up at the top.
I was going to say, what do we do?
We have a feeling that tonight's show is going to be one of those that once we start, we're just not going to be able to stop it. There's too many pictures, there's too many stories, and of course we've got our guest just off camera. We're going to bring him in just a couple of minutes. So, if you'll indulge me, I put on my glasses so that I can read my script.
That'll help.
And I would like to say, Steve, you want me to take the first group?
You take the first group.
Our sponsors. Each and every week we'd like to say hello and thank you to our sponsors, without whom, their generosity, this little show that wouldn't be here.
100%.
That's Alessi Bakery, La Union Italiana, Wright's Gourmet House, Stamatakis, Thalgi and Bonanno, talk about a law firm, Amarelli's Sandwiches and More, Cacciatore Brothers, again, Philip Cacciatore, Mr. P.J. Testa Accounting, Philip Testa, Costantino and Company, South Tampa Chiropractic Clinic, the Housewife Bake Shop, Columbia Jobbing, and most recently joining our family of sponsors, Florida Blood Services.
Exciting.
So if you think that we won't be hitting you up for a blood service blood drive pretty soon, well, think again.
We will.
That's coming. Steve, talk about our personal contributors.
Absolutely. Personal contributors, Frank Cueto, Ronnie DeRigo, chefs Dave Del Rio and George Tamargo, Henry and Raul Castillo, who we just saw the other night at the watch party. We had a great time, by the way.
Yes.
Hello, guys. And they took some great pictures, too. We have Phil and Carmen Nunez, Mike and Kathy White. And you can join, too, so feel free to contact us, and we'd love to have you. You can go to tampanativeshow.com for more information. Our IT department's still working on that, by the way. And
yes.
We call it the IT department because IT spells it, and I'm it.
And
so
Steve's
basically,
it.
But stay with us. Bear with us.
That's a work in progress,
It is.
and it's
We're
soon to be
working
up
on
and
it.
running at full speed. Also, you can contact us at show@tampanatives.com. We also have a dedicated comment line. Questions, comments, cheers, and jeers. We take all comers. If you have perhaps a show topic that you'd like us to discuss, or perhaps you've seen something here on the show that you want to make mention of, call us. That number is 813-920-2508. And without further ado, we'd like to call up a little video, a little montage. It takes about a minute. Mike Beluha, for those of you that know Mike, well, you know how talented this gentleman is. Mike, we count on him so much because he brings us each and every week gems, little jewels that he drops in our lap, and we honor him by showing them here on the show. Why wouldn't we? He's immensely talented, and he brings so much production value to our show. So we're gonna display this past Tuesday night's events over at Castillo's Cafe. Henry and Raul are out there watching now, we're sure. Enjoy this. I hope you enjoyed that. That was, again, the incredible
was great.
work of the very talented Mike Baluja. Thank you, Michael,
Thank
for
you.
that.
How about the big bowl of paella
That was amazing.
with all the crab claws, and that was amazing.
Yep.
Lots of seafood.
Yep, my father and my parents were there, and my pop, who worked the better part of 30 years at the Columbia restaurant, he saw that immense, rather oversized bowl of paella come out. It was a big cazuela, and you know, he went up to Raul and he asked him, he said, how much you got in that thing? He said, what, about $100? I said, yeah, Pop, in 1969 dollars, that's about a $400 paella. There were 10 tails of lobster, there were 42 crab claws sticking up, and then the rest was 10 pounds of fresh seafood, and of course, that delicious rice. So
It was
it was
spectacular.
Quite an evening for all of us, as you saw, and that's photographic evidence of that. This week's question of the week, I guess we can lay it out there now. When we do go to our phone calls later, we'll ask, of course, name and number for your name and where you're calling from. We ask for your Bolita number before you hang up. Don't forget to give us your Bolita number, and we'll also ask you the question of the week. This week's question of the week, brought to you by Stamatakis, Thalgi, and Bonanno. Question of the week is, darling, would you like to let everybody know?
No, I think you better let
All right, I
her.
better let everybody know because she doesn't have her glasses on just yet. The question of the week is simply this. Keeping with our Cuba theme, it's relations with Cuba. Yay or nay? How do you feel about that? Should we normalize relations with Cuba? We know it's a polarizing issue. We know there are many of you out there that feel strongly that we should not. But then there are quite a few of us, I count myself among those, that believe it's time that we begin to normalize our relations with Cuba. And let me also offer that for those of you that know what I do during the daytime, as a career flight attendant with American Airlines, I can say that. I don't have to say that major carrier because this is public access television. I'm in Miami quite often, and I can tell you that the flights that go to and from Havana, 37 minutes flying time between takeoff and touchdown, Miami and Havana, are full every day. And there are at least 3 or 4 of them that leave Miami International and return every day. So if you want to kind of consider that, things are already semi-normalized. John Q. Citizen can't go there, but if you have a relative that's you can prove is still living in Cuba, you can go there. I'm assuming that's how Mr. Fernandez got there, and of course if I can find some of my living relatives, I could go there as well. But that's the question of the day, without being too editorializing too much. Normalize relations with Cuba, yay or nay, and where do you line up on that? Now,
Should be interesting.
all of that loveliness aside, we'll ask our technical director, our producer, and our dear friend, Mr. Jeff Haynes, if you want to go ahead and bring up that 4-shot, we'd like to introduce our guest to you now. Ladies and gentlemen, without further ado, the gentleman you see seated to the left of the 15-minute girl is our friend, Tampa native, Mr. Rudy Fernandez. Rudy,
Welcome,
saludos.
Welcome.
It's a pleasure to be here.
Oh, man, it's great. Listen, Steve, we know that you've known this gentleman for a long time. Tell our viewing audience how you and Rudy know each other.
Definitely. Well, Rudy and I have known each other since St. Lawrence Elementary School. And when you went to St. Lawrence School, you either went to, when you graduated after 8th grade, you either went to a Jesuit or Tampa Catholic. I went to Tampa Catholic, Rudy went to Jesuit. There we kind of lost trails, you know, and then a few years later I met up with him again in the stock market. He was E.F. Hutton, right?
E.F. Hutton.
I don't know, that was the first company.
Right.
Yeah, when
E.F.
E.F.
Hutton
Hutton
speaks,
talks, everyone
everybody
listens, you know. We don't forget those, do we? Those little jingles.
And the
No,
other
we
night,
don't.
at Castillo's Cafe, forgive me for interjecting, but tell us what we found out.
Well, something that I totally forgot about. We
Yep.
worked together at Camelot Music at University Mall. It was University, right? 'Cause I worked at
University
Tampa
Square
Bay.
Mall,
Okay.
right.
And I remember now working with you, but I've totally forgotten until you mentioned it the other night. But there was about a 20-year span of time where we lost touch with each other. And it's been great reconnecting with Rudy again. And you were a city councilman for a while too, right?
Rudy,
was.
tell our fans a little bit about what you've been doing, your professional career, of course, the time spent as a city council person. Tell us a little bit about your family history here in Tampa.
Okay, well, my family goes way back to Tampa, 4 or 5 generations. I've lived here all my life. Actually, I'm not technically a native because I was born in Kingsport, Tennessee when my dad was
we
with-
can discuss that, Rudy. We can discuss that because the 15-minute girl was born in Atlanta,
Technically
Georgia,
not
but
a native.
we never placed a premium on nativity here at the Tampa Native Show. If you were raised here, if you remember the 60s and the 70s and those glory days,
Yeah.
There you go.
you're a native.
You remember Shakey's Pizza?
I do.
You're a native.
I do
You're a
indeed.
native.
There
Pizza
you go.
parlor?
You got it.
Native.
Okay.
High Life Fronton?
I've been there.
Double native.
Buffalo Avenue?
Go ahead, Rudy. I'm sorry. Finish telling us about your nativity.
You
and
qualify.
how long here.
That's
At any rate, been in the investment counseling business for the last 26 years. Been married to, actually 28 years, been married to my lovely wife Meg for 26 years.
Hi, Meg.
Have two daughters, Carrie Ann and Kaylee, who hopefully are listening now.
Sure.
Hi, girls.
One is in Duke University up in North Carolina. The other is in Tampa at Robinson High School.
Ah.
And just life is good. Still
Good.
in the investment business, and thorough pleasure to be here on the show.
Well, we
We're happy to
And
have
to
you.
reconnect with Steve, of course.
There you
Of
go.
course. And when we
Glad to have
heard
you.
your compelling story the other day at Amarillo Sandwiches and More, when we were having our
Yeah.
brunch there, you know, I immediately thought to myself, we had to have you on the show with us because you
More
know,
people need to hear the story.
people need to hear the story, and we are privileged, and we feel very honored to break this story. I personally, in talking with Steve and in talking with 15-Minute Girl throughout the course of our production week, I feel like the story merits some national attention. I think
Yes.
that it's the kind of story that if a producer from 60 Minutes or 48 Hours got a hold of, he might want to have it to display on the national stage. That said, let's go ahead and go over these pictures as they come up. If you'll give us the narrative behind these pictures, we'll get through these rather quickly so we can ultimately get to our phone calls. Tell us a little bit about this picture here, Rudy.
Well, this is a picture of the Capitol building in Havana, Cuba. That building was built shortly after the Spanish-American War. A couple of notable things about the picture. Number one is that there was a lot of U.S. influence in Havana, as you can see by the similarity between that building and our capital in Washington, D.C. The next thing you see a lot of in Havana is the 60s style cars. There's a 50s style car. There's about a 56 or 57 Cadillac there in the foreground. Next thing you see in the picture is that you don't see many cars, and that's because people can't afford the gas and the fuel to put in the cars.
Yeah.
What you see instead are a lot of rickshaws, a lot of these Coco taxis that we'll see pretty soon. But you don't see a lot of traffic on the streets, even though Havana is a very densely populated city.
Yeah.
And you see that throughout Cuba as we traveled around. Between two large cities, you've got one lane of traffic going in each direction with very little traffic.
Are there buses or anything? Or?
Quite a few buses,
Okay.
and that's mostly how the Cubans get around because they can't afford cars. There are virtually no American cars there that were built after 1960. Things you see after 1960 are typically Russian cars during the Soviet era in Cuba.
That's interesting.
When I think of Cuba, I think of the 1957 Chevrolets and the old
Yeah.
Dodge. And
Well, the one thing about the nostalgic 1957 Chevrolets that are different in Cuba than they were that we remember is that our 57 Chevys had internal combustion engines in them. What happened sometime during the Soviet era is most of these people that owned these cars yanked out the internal combustion engine and replaced them with Soviet diesel truck engines.
oh, interesting.
So as a consequence, when you're riding around in these cars, you smell that diesel fuel.
Oh,
and my wife and daughter who were with me could tell you all about the odor of these diesel engines.
Wow.
It's
Fascinating
pretty-
point.
What we know about the passengers that travel to Cuba on a daily basis, those ones that I see queuing up at the airport, is a lot of times they're carrying with them, we talked about this the other day, Rudy, auto parts.
Oh, yeah.
Because it's the auto parts that come at a premium they can't find there, so they get them here, they wrap them with the bubble wrap, and they take them right on the airplane with them, where they shove them in the belly, because that's basically how they provide themselves with their livelihood, those that are taxi drivers.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Let's look at that next picture. Keep the next picture coming, if you would, Jeff, and Rudy, tell us about this one.
Well, this picture here, and again, we went through about 200 pictures and selected about a dozen. A famous movie called Fresas y Chocolate was filmed at this house. This just shows you part of the picture. This was a beautiful mansion at one time.
Yeah.
This mansion belonged to somebody, I don't know the whole history of it, but you see these all around Havana. Havana is a gorgeous city, was a gorgeous city.
Correct.
Yeah.
The architecture, the style of the city is phenomenal. Havana, St. Augustine, and Madrid were all three founded at about the same time. Between 1510 and 1520, those three cities were founded. Havana doesn't look much like St. Augustine except for the fort, but Havana looks amazingly similar to Madrid. Okay, the architecture of Havana looks a lot like Madrid, the detail work. This particular mansion here that belonged to an individual has now been converted to kind of an apartment house where you've got 7 or 8 families living in this place. You've got laundry hanging out the balcony doors in the back. You've got a restaurant in the 3rd floor. where the movie Fresas and Chocolates was filmed, and they're very proud that the movie
Strawberries and
Sure,
chocolates.
yeah.
Strawberries and Chocolate was
Yeah.
filmed at this particular location.
It's so beautiful.
It
It's
gives you a
sad,
sense
but it's-
of the disrepair that some of the buildings
Yeah,
may
it's really
have
sad.
fallen into, and the potential for it, if it could be revived,
Restored.
for it to be experience that renaissance. I mean,
Yeah.
that's a beautiful building. What we
Yeah.
can see of it right there.
Yeah, and the city is literally crumbling.
It's sad.
It's
really
very sad.
It's deterioration by neglect, I believe, is the phrase. Next photograph, Jeffrey.
As we were walking down the street, we poked our head into an opening, and here was a classroom. Okay, a bunch of kids there. One of the things, we brought medical supplies to a church in Havana. You'll see the church in a moment. But one of the things we brought along, kind of as for fun, we brought baseballs, because they're really into baseball, and we brought these hand puppets. Well, as we walked past this classroom and saw these kids, the teacher looked out at us, and my daughter went up to the teacher and handed him a puppet. And these kids just lit up with the puppet. They were, the teacher was kind of talking through the puppet. But what you'll see here is the kids all wear uniforms. Education is a big, important thing in Cuba. The salary in Cuba, the national salary, just about everybody makes $10 to $12 a month.
Wow.
$10 to $12 a month.
It's nothing.
Plus their rations, a certain amount of rice, a certain amount of chicken, but they also get housing, education, medical care. What you'll see in that schoolroom, in our classroom, you'd see a U.S. flag. In this classroom, and I think this is the case in most classrooms, you see Che Guevara up there.
Photograph.
And you see Che Guevara, who Castro feels is their national hero throughout the country.
Isn't that something much
Yeah.
like our George Washington? I
Yeah.
guess you could kind of
Exactly.
look at him along that way.
Yeah.
Next photograph. We'll try to get through these pretty quickly.
This is the church where my great-grandmother was baptized.
Say that again, because that's pretty impressive.
That
It
is
is.
the church where my great-grandmother was
That's pretty
baptized.
cool.
She was baptized in this church, which is in Regla, which is right across the bay from Havana.
That's very cool.
And this is my daughter and the curator of the church that we have a relationship with.
Was it a
That
big
we-
church?
It was
Modest.
modest.
Modest size.
Yeah, nothing like Sacred Heart Church.
Right.
It's probably a smaller version of OLPH.
Okay. Okay.
Something of that
very classic,
magnitude.
very traditional.
Right. We took the boat over to get to this church. It would be like getting from the Marriott at Harbor Island to Harbor Island itself.
Right.
And for the three of us to ride the boat across, we had to go through all kind of security, and I can tell you about the security in a minute and the reason why. But to take the boat, we paid in the Cuban currency as opposed to the tourist currency. They have two currencies. Cost us about $0.015 for the three of us to ride this boat. Cuban prices are very, very cheap because their wages are so low.
Yeah.
Of course. And you were mentioning that everything else pretty much is taken care of for them. So they don't really need for a great salary per se, but at the same time it limits creativity,
Yeah.
ambition,
Absolutely.
aspiration.
Everything.
It's really kind of a limited society to say the least.
Right.
Next photograph.
These are just some Cubans around the street in Havana playing. You see music, hear music all over the place, whether it's coming out of radios or just people banging two sticks together. But this was a typical sight you might see around Havana is people playing music because, and that's an interesting thing. They don't have cell phones, they don't have iPods, they don't have computers.
Television?
Minimal
Limited.
television, that you'll
Limited.
see, but very limited. The television that the Cubans get to watch is
Is the national
limited
TV.
to the national propaganda,
Yeah, sure.
baseball propaganda, and so
Yeah.
forth. The tourists get to watch more Americanized television, just like the tourists get to use internet. The tourists get to use the tourist currency, but the local Cubans don't have as much
Yeah.
access to that sort of thing.
You know, the title of our show this week, as we promoted it on Facebook, was The Tale of Two Cities. And two countries, two cities, two worlds apart.
Very much so.
So close yet
Yeah.
so far.
Yeah.
So close yet, as my daughter put it, she said, we're going to take an hour and 15-minute plane flight, but we're going to go back 50 years into time.
Yes,
Right.
absolutely. Yeah.
like a time warp.
That's an
It
amazing
must be odd. It must be really odd to do
encapsulation
that.
of, I think, pretty much what you experience when you get there. You know, when we flew
Pretty
in there,
ironic.
the morning that we flew in there as well, that was my experience also. I saw the superhighways, Rudy. They were empty.
Exactly.
And there were 3 cars on there, and the cars that were on there were traveling at about 40 miles an hour. You know, what I saw was an expanse of land that was in desperate need of inhabitants
Yeah.
and care and love. Next photograph, Jeff?
What we found is, I have a passion for
there you
chickens,
go.
for chickens, and we've been talking about
like
that in
chickens
Tampa. You see chickens everywhere. In fact, I don't believe you can have your windows open in Havana and not hear roosters crowing at 4 a.m.
Oh, wow.
Here in a restaurant, the chickens were just running loose, but you see chickens everywhere.
They're making
You
a
hear the
comeback in
roosters.
Ybor City.
I was gonna say,
They're making a comeback.
Yeah, so
Well, I think
Yeah.
they're going to allow parts of Tampa to have chickens in their backyard.
Why
I think
not?
I read that.
Why not?
yeah.
I
I
mean,
saw 'em
free
recently.
range.
Makes
You can-
sense.
You know, we're turning the clock back, Rudy. We're going back to our abuelos times when, if you want a chicken dinner on
like
Sunday,
chickens.
you go out back, you get you a chicken, you wring its neck, and
Arroz
dinner.
blanco con huevos fritos.
Well, and when food is at the premium it is there.
Yeah, you wonder
Yeah.
what these chickens are doing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
These are pretty special chickens.
That's right.
Talk about the
They're
cock
pretty
of the
fat,
walk.
too.
That's right.
The next photograph.
What's interesting, talking about Tampa and Havana, let's talk about the United States and Havana. The United States influence there, you see it and you don't. There's almost a love-hate relationship
Right.
between their government and our government. You see a statue to the U.S. Maine in downtown Havana. You see a lot of signs of Americanism. You've seen a lot of signs of the Soviet influence. I saw 2 statues of Abe Lincoln.
There was one right there.
Yeah, that was one. There was a statue of Abe Lincoln. They have a park of North and South American liberators, and there's a representative from every country in North and South America in this park, and Abe Lincoln was the representative there. The statue you see in the picture behind my head is Abe Lincoln in the Museum of the Revolution. What Fidel Castro did was when they took over Batista's palace, they converted Batista's palace into the Museum of the Revolution. And I would assume that Batista had a statue of Abe Lincoln in his palace, and they never moved the statue. So there's
fascinating.
Honest Abe there with my
Yeah.
with Meg and Kaylee.
You wouldn't expect to see that there.
lot of
That's
ironies
very
there.
unusual.
They're just many ironies. That's
Yeah.
Steve's exact word for it.
Yeah.
Before we get to the next
Contradictions.
photograph, and we will in just a moment, we're going to insert that story that we talked about on the phone yesterday in pre-production. I need to go ahead because we're going to get to our phones here very quickly.
Yeah.
We're going to have to kind of get through the next few photographs we're going to have to go through quickly so we can get to our callers. But let me go ahead and say for the record, this Tony Zapponi Tampa Trivia of the Week is brought to you by...
Tony Peroni, Housewife Bake Shop.
Easy for you to say,
I've got that
Steve.
down.
Tony
That was
Peroni
good,
and
Steve.
Tony Zapponi. What an alliteration. All right, here's the question of the week, callers. Get ready, because remember, Tony's paying out big bonuses. Give me that tight shot on camera
Big
one there,
bucks.
boss. I'm going to read this real quick without my glasses. See, that's why I made the font real big so I can see it without my glasses. In 1956 and 1957, this unknown college student spent his summers as a counselor at Camp Keystone on Gun Highway, just south of State Road 54. 15 years later, he would be a Hollywood icon. What was his name?
I think I know.
I think I know too.
I think a lot of our
Pretty
fans
sure
know
I
that.
know.
I think a lot of our fans will know.
Yeah.
So I'm not going to look at the phone yet because we haven't asked for callers, but I'm expecting it to light up pretty quickly. All right, Jeffrey. That's our Tony Zapponi question Tampa Trivia of the Week, brought to you by
Tony Peroni.
Tony Peroni and Housewife Bake Shop. Next photograph, sir, and keep those coming.
Well, there is my wife with my native Tampa daughter. You can see the Capitol building in the background.
Yeah.
We had just taken the penny and a half boat ride over,
Wow.
where we had to go through security. And apparently, the reason for the security is because several years back, a Cuban tried to hijack the boat from Regla to Miami. And now they have security because they want to make sure that Cubans aren't trying to
Right.
do
Tell us about the 3 gentlemen that you met there. That compelling story. We have a visual confirmation. We have a photograph that we will not show you, ladies and gentlemen, because after all, we don't want the black vans to show up at Rudy's house. But tell us a little bit about that story.
Well, I appreciate you not showing the picture,
Yeah.
but while Meg and Kaylee and I were on this boat coming across this channel, we had our puppets and we met these 3. We called them the 3 compañeros because they're these 3 gentlemen in their late 20s, and we got to talking about their kids, and I gave them each a baseball or a puppet for their kids, and we got to talking, and it turned out they were planning their escape. They
Wow.
figured out one of them has access to a boat. The other one had a cousin that brought a GPS, and they were explaining to us how they were going to escape, they and the 3 of them and 9 other guys. And I asked them, how are you going to do this? Well, they told us when they were going to leave and how they were going to outrun the U.S., the Castro government, and then under the wet foot, dry foot, how they're going to outrun the U.S. Coast Guard to get to the United States.
What an ambitious plan.
An ambitious plan. I said, what about your wife and kids?
Yeah.
And they said, well, we're going to leave them behind, but once we're in the United States a year, we feel we can get the correct citizenship and papers and documentation to come back and get her. And that's the only way out for these people,
Yes.
because under the communistic system, economically, it's so complicated to move up in the system.
Right.
There's such little opportunity for progress, for prosperity, unless you can run away.
I will say this, and then I'm going to ask Rudy, I'm going to ask your indulgence if I could ask Jeffrey if it's possible that he might be able to advance all the way to the very last photograph of the three ladies, because we want to get to the story, the meat of this particular edition of the Tampa Native Show. But along those same lines, Rudy, would you agree, because I've talked to some colleagues of mine at American Airlines who are either first generation descendants of Cubans that came from Cuba, or they themselves were born in Cuba. And their story, the way they tell their story, is that a lot of times, if you're born into that system with lack of opportunity and lack of choices, let's say, when you get here to the United States and you walk into a grocery store or you go to a shopping center, you're overwhelmed with so many choices. We take them for granted here. There's 42 cereals, there's shoes from here to the end of the...
Too much.
There, they don't have that. So a lot of times when they come here and they're overwhelmed, sensory overload, then they go back and it's more comforting for them. In other words, even if you gave some of them the opportunity to come here, they might not, simply because it might be too much. So that's the fine line that you walk. And I think personally, anytime you can get somebody and show them that there's other ways or different ways or more opportunity to grow personally, whether it's economically, that's a good thing.
Yes.
Civilization as we know it, humanity as we know it, needs to continue to evolve and get smarter and better and have opportunities presented to it. That is the land that time has forgotten. And it is kind of, we talk about it all the time, it's stuck in the 1950s, and in a lot of ways it truly is. Okay, soapbox, I'll give you your soapbox back, Rudy, but I want to talk about this photograph here, because this is really the meat of the story. Did you want to make a comment on what I was saying?
No, I think you're right on the money. Anybody who's 53 years old or younger has seen no other life.
Right.
It's amazing.
And I didn't get the sense that people were, by and large, looking to leave.
Correct.
They're putting up with their lifestyle. And it's a very comforting lifestyle. I mean, I had one guy sit to me, look me square in the eye and tell me socialism is a great thing, capitalism is a bad thing. Our problems are all about the United States. And this guy's drinking the Kool-Aid.
Right.
And he feels that, the problem is because of the embargo in the United States. And if it weren't for that, they'd have a good life. So
They've adjusted.
It's that catch-22.
Yeah.
It's that catch-22. Okay.
Right.
Ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to ask Rudy to go ahead and give us the timeline where the show is again. This is the fastest 60 minutes in cable broadcast history, and we're proving it again tonight. The picture that you see here, Rudy's going to give us the story that goes with that picture. Tell everybody what you told me at Amaryllis that morning.
Well, basically, we stayed in a bed. We like staying at bed and breakfasts. At least I do. My wife and daughter would now think otherwise, because some of these bed and breakfasts were not what you would see in a charming New England bed and breakfast.
Kind of minimal.
I would say they're very basic, very basic, but very, very nice, warm, charming people. This lady to your right, Beliza, is exactly my age. She's 2 months older than I am. She was born in January of 1960, which makes her 52 years old. And she ran a bed and breakfast, very simple house, very charming lady. And we got to talking to her. She asked me where I was from. I said the United States, which people are very surprised when you say United States. They always thought I was an Italian or a Portuguese or a Brazilian or
European, certainly.
something.
Or South American.
Right. They would never guess when it was myself alone that I was from the United States. And then she said, "Where in the United States?" I said, "Tampa." And it was almost as if a tear started to come out of her eye. And I was like, wow, I really hit a nerve with Tampa. And I said, "What's with that?" And she paused for a second and she said, "Well, my dad and my mom didn't get along too well, and in the late 60s, around 66, 67, my father abandoned us." She said, "I haven't seen my father since the mid to late 60s, and all I know is that he went to Tampa, Florida." She said, "Do you know him?" And I said, she gave me his name, and I don't know him, and But I said, hey, if I see him, if I can look him up, I said, do you want me to relay any message? And there was a mixture of happiness and anger and hope. And she said, yes, tell him that if you see him, tell him that we miss him very much. We'd love to see him again. And tell him that he shouldn't have abandoned. She went on and wrote me a little note. I've got the little note. And she said, yeah, if you can look him up, that would be great. So I jotted down his name. And Meg said, hey, you ought to take a picture of Belisa, the blonde-haired lady.
idea.
So I took
Great
a picture
idea.
of Belisa with her daughter and granddaughter there. Got back to Tampa. My assistant, Liz, at work, I told her the story. And this gentleman had a double last name. Rios Suarez was the double last name. Looked up Suarez, didn't find anything that jived. And she came back to me and she said, I found a guy. There's no Suarez, but there's a Rios there. And it turned out she showed me the address, and it was in West Tampa. And, I kind of put it in my pocket. And about a week, of course, I got back about 5 weeks ago. About a week or so later, I went to Home Depot. I was on my way back. It was on a Saturday morning. And I drove by the address, and I saw where it was, and the cross street was Matanzas. And I went, wow,
As in
Matanzas,
Cuba.
Matanzas, Cuba. It would
Yeah.
make sense that Mr. Rios would buy a house off of Matanzas Street. Matanzas is the city next to Varadero, where we met Belisa. So I said, I can't resist. I knock on the door. This lady in her mid-60s opens it up. And I said, hello, is Mr. Rios here? She spoke not a word of English. She said, no, Mr. Rios no está aquí, pero she said, come on in, have a cup of coffee. And she didn't know who I was, so I came in, I turned down her cup of coffee, and I started asking her about Mr. Rios. I didn't want to lay all this out. I said, where would I find him? Well, he's at an adult congregate living facility not far from here. I said, can I go visit him? And she said, sure, no problem. She said, he's not in good shape, he's very old, he's very sick. I said, where's he from? And she said, Varadero, Cuba. I said, okay,
Wow.
this is getting kind of dicey here.
But by
Twilight
this time, the hair on the back of your neck's got to be standing up.
Exactly. So I went home, told my wife and daughter the story. Meg dug up the picture of Belisa and her daughters. I went back the next day after church, went down to the adult congregate living facility, knock on the door. Lady answers. I said, is there a Mr. Rios here? And she said, yeah, it's that gentleman sitting over there. And I go, wow. So I walked in. This fellow wasn't that old. He was 78, 79, but he was in much worse shape you would expect a 79-year-old to be in. So I went on in and introduced myself, and he was in and out. I said, hey, where you, Mr. Rios? He gave me the whole name, and the three names matched up with the three names that Belisa had given me. And I said, where are you from? And he said, Varadero. I said, oh, yeah. I said, when did you leave Varadero? He said, 40 años. It's been about 40 years. I said, oh. I said, how many kids do you have? He said, 3 or 4. And, I asked the names, and Belisa came out. I said, well, I was just down in Varadero, and I met a lady named Belisa who would love to meet you. Okay?
Wow.
And I pulled out the picture and showed it to him, and he looked at the picture, and he said, mi esposa, my wife. He goes, I had the most beautiful wife in all of Varadero. I said, Papa, this ain't your wife. This is your daughter. And tu hija. And he
That's
said,
amazing.
yeah. And he said, he goes, look, my granddaughter. And he pointed at the girl in the middle. I said, no, that's your great-granddaughter. So long story short, he said, please, can you give me the picture? I was like, yeah, sure. I gave him the picture. The next day I called Belisa in Cuba. Now, for her to make a phone call would be literally a month's salary. So I called her up. She starts bawling, crying. A very emotional conversation. Told her all about it, and she couldn't stop crying. She said, I'm going to get a ticket to Tampa. I want to see. She said, but I don't know how to go about it. So I walked her through the process a little bit. Long story short, she said, please call me back next Monday morning. Following Monday morning, I called her back. She gave me all her passport information. In order to get a ticket to the United States, she has to get permission from the Cuban government. She also has to get permission from the United States government. At that point, I set up a conference call with her. She had never done a conference call. By the way, I had to mail her the pictures of her father that I took at the nursing home. I said, can I email them to you? I don't know, no conozco nadie con un internet.
Wow.
Do you have a fax machine? Is there any hotels nearby?
1950s.
1950s, no internet, no fax.
That's amazing.
I sent them in the U.S. mail 3 weeks ago. As of day before yesterday, she had not yet received the pictures that I
They
sent her.
probably are going to go through some kind of a
Security, yeah.
check and screening.
Oh.
Long story short, she gave me all the passport information. I took all the documentation, sent it to D.C. to get an appointment for her to meet the U.S. consulate in Havana. Granted, she's going to have to drive 2 hours to get, or take a bus, whatever, 2 hours to Havana to meet the consulate. The date is set for June 24th, 2016.
Wow.
That was the soonest day to get an appointment, to get permission from the U.S. government. Why? Because the U.S. government doesn't want to take the chance that she has to prove to the U.S. government that she's not going to stay. She's got to prove to the to the Cuban government that she's going to come back.
Yeah.
Correct.
So it's just this catch-22
Oh, my gosh.
to get her back here. Will she ever make it? Who knows?
Oh, let's hope so.
With about 16 minutes to go,
Yeah.
and as we say here in the opening to the show, this is the fastest hour in cable broadcast history. We're proving that tonight. We want to get to your calls because we've got a couple of questions for you. You've got the Tony Zapponi Tampa Trivia. Thank you, Rudy, for sharing that amazing story.
That was a wonderful story.
And we've
Great.
also got, we want you to weigh in on yay or nay for normalizing relations with Cuba. So go ahead and give us those calls real quick. That's 977-6800, 813-977-6800. We'll take your calls. You know, I just want to add that it matters not whether you believe this is divine intervention or whether this is the universe conspiring, and Rudy being the conduit here in this story and the one that's bringing this all together and making it happen. It's an amazing and compelling story, and it's as serendipitous for Rudy and fortuitous for Belisa that all these players came into her life at this time. The tragedy by default would be if she can't get here in time to see her father
It would be.
before he passes, because apparently he's ill and he's in an assisted facility. So, you know, do we need help? Yeah, probably. Is there somebody out there who might be listening
Hopefully.
and could perhaps lend us a hand? Maybe.
And big kudos to Rudy.
So, you know, that's what we're here doing tonight. That's what we're here doing tonight. And Rudy could have very easily kind of turned his back and on the story and said, yeah, that's great, and maybe I'll find him, maybe I'm not. But I think
Went the extra mile.
knowing Rudy and the type of person that he is, and once he got a little bit engaged and got a little whiff of the trail, I think that it became clear to him, clear as a bell, that he was going to see this thing through. So
And let me give credit to my wife, Meg, and my daughter, Kaylee.
you better,
who-
because they're out there
who
watching
were
right
with me
now.
throughout this whole process,
Sure.
and saying, hey, we've got to do something for this lady. Let's take a picture of her. Let's, go
Great.
visit the
Well,
dad.
Meg, we
Yeah.
haven't met you, and Kaylee, we haven't met you.
Leave it to
but
the women.
There you go.
Kudos to everybody.
We'll
Yeah,
see you.
guys
We'll
are
see you
great.
and meet you soon. And congratulations and thank you for inspiring
We're
Rudy.
slammed.
Let's go ahead
Wonderful.
quickly because we've got just a couple minutes to go.
Caller, you're on the air. Tell us your name and where you're calling from.
Yes, good evening. This is Hugh from South Tampa.
Hey, Hugh
Hi,
from South
Hugh.
Tampa.
South Tampa.
How you doing?
Good,
Good,
good.
thank you.
Thanks for calling.
Thank you. I could not quite understand the end of Tony Zapponi's question. There was a glitch in the transmission, and I couldn't understand the...
Oh, okay.
Okay,
We'll read it for you.
Here it is again,
All right,
real
go ahead.
quick. I'll give it to you in my best DJ voice.
Make it the
In
best.
1956 and 57, this unknown college student spent his summers as a counselor at Camp Keystone on Gun Highway, just south of State Road 54. Why do I have to put my hand here? I don't know.
I don't know.
15 years later, he would be a Hollywood icon. Name that man.
15 years later, Hollywood icon. Whoa.
You can think about it and give us a call back in just a minute if
Dun,
you like. Hugh.
dun, dun,
But in the
dun,
meantime,
dun,
give us your
dun,
Bolita
dun.
drawing number because we're going to be doing that in just a couple of minutes.
Okay. I will take number 11.
Number 11.
11.
You are
Available.
down
If
for
it
number
comes to you
11.
the answer to the question, call us back right quick. And in the meantime, did you have a yay or a nay normalizing relations with Cuba or not?
You know, I don't think that I honestly know, because I know the Cuban people are so many of them are against it, but I know people who are from Cuba or have relatives from Cuba who really want to be able to see their loved ones and
Sure.
want to have free travel more so. There's both sides of the coin. I am not Cuban Hispanic, and I don't really feel I'm qualified to make that call, to be quite honest with
It's a
you.
tough question.
I dubbed
It is
the
a hard
qualified.
question.
I dubbed the qualified. Hugh, man up and flip a coin and yay or nay.
Well, on balance, I say it's not time because Raul Castro has not.
That's a nay. We've got you down for a nay. We've got to let you go, Hugh, because really and truthfully,
Okay.
we got other callers. But you don't mind if we change that to a yay once we get off the phone with you, do you? Thanks, Hugh. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Have a good
Hugh.
evening.
Bye-bye.
Caller, you're on the air. Tell us your name and where you're calling from.
It's your Northeast correspondent.
Northeast
NEC,
correspondent.
Tom from New York,
Tom.
ladies and gentlemen. That's Tom
How
from
you
New
doing,
York.
Mario Sally?
Hi.
Very well. Thank you, Tom.
You're welcome.
We're getting close right up to the nubs, man. I mean, the show has just been, we've got 12 minutes.
Yeah.
They just told me in my earpiece.
Oh, well, yeah, right. Well, Rudy, my house perked up when you said Home Depot.
Perked up when he said Home Depot.
Why is
And
that?
He's given us the most compelling human interest story of our lifetime, and all you heard was Home Depot. Talk to me about that, Tom, because you're about to lose your Northeast correspondent status.
Watch out.
Explain yourself.
I apologize.
No worries,
Yeah.
no worries. Hey, yay or nay on the normalizing relations with Cuba?
I say give peace a chance and let's spread the love.
Okay, you're back in as the Northeast correspondent. Give us your Bolita drawing number.
42.
Hey, you switched it out on us, huh?
42.
Tom, you're becoming a celebrity here on the set of the Tampa Native Show, and we told your story earlier about watching the color bars. We're going to figure out a prize for you and send it to you soon, I promise.
Well, Mario, thanks for saving me on La Septima last week.
Thank you, thank you.
And that is white, yellow, blue, green, pink, red, blue, and black.
Very nice,
Color bars,
Tom.
the color bars from our Northeast correspondent. Tom, you're the best.
You are amazing.
Take care
Thank
of
you.
yourself. Enjoy that cool weather while it lasts.
Oh, you bet. All right.
Bye,
Thank you,
Tom.
brother. Bye-bye.
Color bar Tom.
That's wonderful.
Caller, you're on the air. Tell us your name and where you're calling from.
My name is Mike. I'm calling from South Tampa.
Mike,
Mike
from South
from
Mike
South
from
Tampa.
South
Mike with
Tampa.
the last name?
Lowry. Like
Oh,
Mike Lowry.
Mike Lowry. Here's
Okay.
a first-time
Hey,
caller,
Mike.
long-time
Yes.
watcher.
Welcome in,
Hi,
Mike.
Mike. Welcome to the show.
Thank you. I have a question for Mr. Fernandez.
Yes, sir.
I am wondering how his parents, who I'm assuming, I know one of them is Cuban, I'm assuming the mother is Cuban as well, how they reacted to him visiting Cuba, because they're going to be older school and that they might not have been as jazzed about him going down there as he was.
All right, good question. Give us yay or nay normalizing relations with Cuba. Mr. Lowry?
Yay with limitations.
Yay with limitations. Yay. A yay is a yay. You can only be a little. You can't be a little bit pregnant. You're either pregnant or not. So that's a yay.
And a Bolita
And how about a
number?
Bolita drawing number?
1 to 75.
64.
64. I'm going to let you go. Rudy's going to answer your question now.
Thank you,
Mike,
Mike.
thanks for calling, and call us anytime. We're here every week.
Thank you.
Thank you, brother.
Thanks for the question, Mike. My parents, Jack and Sylvia, were thrilled that we had the opportunity to go to Cuba. They thought it was great, the whole interculture concept, getting together with a church where my dad's grandmother was baptized. So they were 100% on board with us doing it. They probably thought we were crazy staying in individuals' houses, but they were all for it.
Great.
Excellent.
Historic trip.
Yeah.
Caller, you're on the air. Tell us your name and where you're calling from.
Hi, I'm Meg Fernandez.
Oh, hey,
Hey.
I know her.
welcome to the show, Meg.
Thanks.
First time caller.
Yes.
First time watcher, probably.
Thanks for all your efforts, Meg. And
Yes.
you,
Thanks
your
for
daughter.
supporting Rudy and for
Rudy.
giving him a chance to come out and play on our show tonight.
Okay.
By the way, we got to
I've
let her
never
play.
done this before, so what am I supposed to do?
Okay,
Well-
just give us, talk to us on the phone rather than try to answer the TV because there's a little bit of a delay that'll throw you off.
Yeah.
So
Okay,
give us
right.
your answer, yay or nay, on normalizing relations with Cuba. Would you like us to see things become more normal, or are you hard by the hardliners in Miami saying, no, we don't need to agree with or disagree with Castro in this case?
Oh, I absolutely think we should normalize relations.
Yeah, that was a loaded question,
That's
Meg.
a yay.
We knew the answer to that before we asked it. Now give
But
us...
seriously, let me tell you why.
Please.
When we were there, I realized that the United States, as long as we don't import too much of our consumerism and too much of our loose culture, and too much of our technology, honestly, because one of the great things about Cuba is the human interaction, one person to another, without cell phones, without computers, without the distractions of television. But we have so much to offer them in terms of their overall food issues.
Yeah.
Distribution of food, the freezing, the refrigeration, the preparation of products that can be sold in a restaurant, they were few and far between, or in the home. It's a very, very poor system of food distribution. The other major issue I saw was the whole issue about Cuba drilling for oil. All along the northern coast, you have these very antiquated sort of oil rigs, and with those was the smell of crude oil in the air, to the point where it was in our mouths and we couldn't get rid of that.
That's got to be
Taste it,
horrible.
Sure.
Ugh.
And, you know, Cuba has recently discovered, and I guess working with China, that they have quite a bit of oil off the coast. And if the U.S. were involved in that process, we could manage that process in a way that's mutually beneficial.
Mutually beneficial, and hopefully it wouldn't result in some kind of an environmental catastrophe.
Yeah,
or worse,
we don't
because
need any more of
the people
those.
there don't have the facilities whereby, look at that picture of you guys in that Coco taxi. Meg, we're hard up against the clock here. We're going to have to turn you loose. This is one time I regret horribly not asking for an exemption from TBCN for an hour-and-a-half show. You know, we can do that from time to time, and this was the one show that I probably should have done that. I had no idea that Rudy was going to be such a wonderful talker. No, I knew that. I knew that.
Great, thank
but
you.
Maybe we'll just have to have him back on to do a part 2 from this show as the story itself continues to evolve. But Meg, thanks so much
Thank
for
you,
calling
Meg,
in.
for calling.
Did we get your Bolita number?
No.
1 through 75, Meg?
1 through 75.
58.
Which one?
58.
58.
Okay.
There you go.
Okay.
Ask her if she needs
Hey,
milk or
bye-bye.
eggs on the way.
Meg,
Yeah?
should he bring home, Rudy wants to know, is he milk or eggs? Do you need anything on the way home?
No, thank you. We've got dinner here and all ready.
Wonderful. Thank you so much.
Or chicken?
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye, Meg.
How much time, Jeffrey? About
6
6
minutes.
minutes.
Wow.
Let's get
Fast
this
and
next
furious.
caller, then I'm going to make an announcement real quick.
Caller, you're on the air. Tell us your name and where you're calling from.
Hey, Steve, it's Deb Palladini in Rose Durant. How you doing?
Hey, how y'all
Hey,
doing?
hey.
Thanks for calling.
Hey, good.
Good to hear from you again.
I decided to call this time. I'm not scared.
Oh, there you go.
Listen, this is a wonderful program. You have to do 2 or 3 more of these because you're running out of
You're
time.
right.
I know.
You're
that.
right.
We are running out
I
of
know.
time.
And
This is
again,
too fast.
I regret
Way
not
too
asking
fast.
for that extra 30 minutes. Rudy, forgive me, but you just have to come back.
There's more shows.
Yes.
Thank you.
We've got time.
This is wonderful. I can't really tell you. I think, you know, whatever the government does, we have to follow. But
Okay.
I certainly, you know, if they ever decide that we can have these relations, I will be the first one there because I want to see it untouched by tourism. I want to see those old cars.
Yeah.
I want to see the
So do I.
from the 50s, if you will.
Yes.
Before it changes, before it
changes.
before it
Yeah.
gets spoiled, I guess we could
Something
say.
like Myrtle Beach or something.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Right.
Got all these high rises and everything touristic.
Too commercialized,
Exactly.
which is what Meg was referring to, I think. If we can keep
Yes,
it from becoming
yeah.
overly commercialized.
He
Hey,
said that, exactly.
do you have a favorite Bolita number? Give us that Bolita number, Deb.
Well, you know, mine's 17, and Rose, what's yours? 27.
17 and
Okay.
27. You guys
There
are the
we
best,
go.
and thank you so
7.
much. Listen, come out and join us. And if you guys will hurry up quick, take a picture of each other, or both of you standing in front of the TV and send it in to us, you might win an appearance by the cast of the Tampa Native Show next week because we're still looking for those photographs.
That's a watch party?
Watch party at your house.
How
You'll have
about
to
we
feed
take
us,
you-
though.
Take a picture and send it to you from when we went to see you at the Italian Fest.
Well, that would work, but we
Great.
need to have you watching us in the background. That's,
That's right.
the whole idea. That's how we know you're having a watch party.
You can use Photoshop.
Just
Take out your
Don't do
camera
that,
and take a picture.
Yeah, take a quick picture and send
All
it to us.
right. You guys take care.
Thank
Bye,
you.
Donna.
Love the show. Bye.
Bye-bye. Thank
you.
you.
Thank you.
Do we have loyal fans or what?
We
Jeffrey,
do.
Jeffrey, how many minutes?
3.5 minutes.
3.5 minutes. Let me make this real quick announcement. This is your PSA, public service announcement, and then we'll get back to that last caller. Caller, we see you there. Stand by. I just want to say to my two co-hosts here, Tampa Steve and of course the 15-minute girl, that you guys, I need your help.
Sure.
And I need your help like next week Thursday. So if you're available, I need you to join, well, just to come down, let's just
Lots
say.
of people.
Yeah, come down. And you know, if you have friends, close friends that you know, you can call these people up and they will mobilize and join you. Next Thursday, 9 a.m. at City Hall. I'm going to be there, and I want you to be there with me.
I will be there.
Because we're going to be talking about La Septima versus La Settima. We're going to put that to rest. And I'll tell you the reason that we have to do that, which is very, very important to know. You know, something important is going to happen here in August of this year. The RNC is going to be here. And it's not just the hardliners from Miami that are going to be up here invading. It's going to be the entire nation,
Everybody.
if not the world, watching
Right.
the RNC proceedings.
Lot of eyeballs.
And our fair city. Now, you know everybody's going to be down there on 7th Avenue. They're going to be strolling up and down, a.k.a. Bourbon Street, 7th Avenue. They want to know all of what's the history of this joint.
Yeah.
And if we've got a street sign there that's misspelled, well, how silly are we going to look? Anyway, will you join me?
I'll join you.
Next Thursday, will you join me?
Absolutely, I will be with
Okay,
you.
2.5 minutes to go.
Wow.
Septima.
Rudy, I'm going to pass that soapbox back over. We got 2 callers on the line, 2.5 minutes to go. Let me handle this one.
Fast and
Steve.
Furious.
Let's
Caller,
roll.
you're on the air. Tell us your name, where you're calling from. You got about a minute.
This is Big Mike from Orlando.
There he
Hey!
is.
Big Mike,
Mike.
repeat.
Mike.
We're up against the clock. We got about 2 minutes. Say hello to Rudy.
I know. I'm gonna make it real quick. Here we go. Open up relations with Cuba. Cuba Libres for everybody.
Thank you. With a line.
And then a Keystone thing I don't know, and I want 32. I love you guys. Great show.
Thank
32.
you.
Mike Padrini
32.
from
We love you,
Orlando.
Big Mike.
That's our Orlando correspondent. We love you, Mikey. Thank you so much. Big Mike Padrini. Caller.
Caller, you're on the
45
air.
seconds.
Oh my
You got the
gosh.
last call tonight.
Oh, there you
Caller,
are.
on the
Oh my
air. Tell us your
gosh.
name, where you're calling from. Go. Caller.
Hey, this is Bill Richards from San Diego.
Oh, Bill
Wow.
Richards from San Diego. Bill, my goodness, can we ask you your indulgence? We've got about 30 seconds. We've got to sign off here on live television. Can we ask you to please send your question to us and we can read it next week on the show? We so apologize. We're up against the clock.
Thank you for your call.
No problem.
Show at
Thank you.
tampanatives.com. Ladies and gentlemen, that's Bill Richardson calling. Is this Billy Richardson that I know from grade school?
No.
Okay. All right, Bill, send us that question. We'll be sure and read it next week on the air.
Okay.
Thank you,
Thank
Bill.
How
you.
much time?
Ladies and gentlemen, we're not going to do a Bolita drawing tonight. We got 1 minute.
We have a
Okay,
minute.
we don't have the opportunity tonight, unfortunately, because this was such a wonderful show, to do the Bolita drawing. So,
Yeah.
as the moderator and co-host, we're going to just give everybody tonight, if I can get you to hold
I
up that
think they're-
bumper. Here we go.
Hey there.
Everybody who called in tonight is going to get one of these fabulous TampaNativeShow.com bumper stickers. So, for those of you that called in and gave us your number, send us an email and give us your address. We'll put it in the mail to you, and it'll be delivered to your home. 30 seconds, did you say, Jeff? Jeffrey? Talk to me, big fella. Don't leave... 30 seconds. Okay, don't leave me out here twisted. Let me just say, bring up that 4 shot, because in 30 seconds it's going to fly by.
Yeah.
Rudy, on behalf of the Tampa Native Show,
Thank you,
myself, there it is. On behalf of myself, the 15-minute girl, Tampa Steve, thank you so much for telling us your
What
story.
a wonderful
Awesome
Will you
story.
come
Thank you.
back and put the cherry on the sundae?
I'd love to, and I'm
Great.
dying to know what my roommate from college in San Diego was
Oh,
calling you.
really?
Oh,
wonderful.
no. We'll just bring you back next week.
We've got to do
sorry.
On behalf, a.k.a. 15-minute girl, Tampa Steve and Rudy, do it with me.
Salute, Rudy.
Salute,
Salute.
and happy
Happy
days.
days.
We love you, Tampa. We'll see
Bye.
you soon.
We do.
Back when we were younger
What a great show, guys.
and everything seemed new. We used to have a lot of fun, yes we did. No matter what we do. Sleepy days, long summer nights, going anywhere we please. With love that I could call my own, love that I've always known, the city that I call my home, a home from which I never roam. This love affair was meant to be. I love her and she loves me. I remember Tampa, oh, she remembers me. She remembers me. I remember, yeah, yes I do. Oh, oh, I remember, yeah, me and you. I'm a Tampa native, Tampa native, can't you see? I will share my story with you to preserve its history.
All right now, don't forget, Thursdays, 7 p.m. on TBCN, home of the Tampa Native Show.